Hello and welcome to the Satellite TV podcast. My guest joining us once again today is a former president of the Sikh Youth of America, former president of one of the largest gurdwaras in California, and the founder of the Sikh Information Centre, the Organisation for Minorities of India, and the Sovereign Star Publishing Company. But he has also been a prolific author with published titles, listings including The Faces of Terror in India, Demons Within, Cultural Malware, and Kite Flights, amongst many others. But it's the shocking discoveries uncovered in that final fascinating book, Kite Flights, that we're going to take a look at today. Bhajan Singh Bhinder, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh to all our listeners.
Indeed. Now, Bhajan, in 2013, you made the following statement, and I'll read it back to you if I may. Minorities in India, such as depressed tribals, Buddhists, Christians, Muslims and Sikhs, are used as pawns in the upper caste Hindus' expansionist agenda. Their strategy is a complex one of subterfuge, misdirection and false flag attacks to create division, destabilise society, pit one minority group against another and justify draconian suppression, including violence against Pakistan and neighbouring countries. Now, since you made that statement, Bhajan, a lot has come out, a lot of evidence has been revealed. Perhaps you could elaborate what actually you've discovered since then.
Well, first of all, I like to dwell slightly on the expansionism threats from the Hindutva forces. I made this statement on March 8, 2013. And when you go back in history and you look at the neo-modern, the softer version of Hindutva at that time, when you look at the leaders such as Lala Hardyal, he said, just as a Hindu religion in Nepal, there must be a Hindu institutions in Afghanistan and the frontier territory. Otherwise, it's useless to win Swaraj. If Hindus want to protect themselves, they must conquer Afghanistan, the frontiers, and convert all the minority tribes. That's in 1925. Well, that is the early introduction of Hindutva. Hardyal, who has came to United States during the Gadar movement, has infiltrated the movement and is basically a triple agent for the German, UK, and the Hindu ideologues themselves. And we have discovered a lot about him since then. The second thing is one of the most extraordinary diplomat of America was Thorpe Talbot, who have decades of consistent relationships with India. Now, when he was talking to India about the US-India future ties, Advani just in a moment of relaxation said, this is Thorpe himself saying this, Advani mused out aloud about the happy days when India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Burma, formerly Burma, will be reunited in a single South Asian confederation. So this is quite telling, and it's quite a scary thought for minorities and the surrounding countries. So when we are talking about India's expansionism, it is basically based on India's historical desires and intentions upon the nations. And we have seen a consistent pattern where Sikhs are basically used as a bait, to fulfill this expansionism ideas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Even the Chuck Hagel, who was then the Secretary of Defense, he says India has always used Afghanistan as a second front. And India, over the years, has financed problems for Pakistan on that side. The key word here he uses a second front and financed. So from there, we can go to where we are today. The CIA official Sarah Adams, she just revealed that, and she said, I swear to God, yeah. And she's swearing to God that the India has paid certain elements of the Taliban close to $10 million to carry out hits against Sikhs, Kashmiri and Sikh militants across Pakistan. And she said they've been killing a bunch of Sikh militants. So we might only heard of maybe one or two, but there are many other killings that are behind the scene. So it is based on this historical desires and carrying out those intentions in the most devious means that brought us today to where we are. And since then, a lot has happened.
So I mean, the evidence has appeared then through Chuck Hagel and, of course, Sarah Adams with their sort of revelations. And it's what I find fascinating then is this this three-way relationship between India and Pakistan and Afghanistan. And clearly it is appearing increasingly so that India is using Afghanistan as basically a proxy to attack its old enemy of Pakistan. So what sort of, we talked about money changing hands, simple money. But what, in terms of activities, what actual activities are going on the ground? What is this money paying for? Is it militant attacks? Is it terrorist attacks? What exactly is happening on the ground? What are the Taliban doing, or the Afghan government? What are they doing with this money?
Well, this is not the Afghan government because of the level of splits and so many varying interests. So this is not the whole Taliban or the whole of the Afghanistan government, but just one segment in there among the many, many segments. When we discuss this intriguing scenario, for example, when the Kabul bombings happened, in 2020, the group that took responsibility was ISKP, the Khorasan province ISIS group. And the reasons they gave for the attack was they're upset with India's actions in Kashmir. However, as we have also pointed out in our book, the Proxy War behind the Kabul Gurdwara massacres, it's very interesting that the head of the ISKP group at that time, who took responsibility, Aslam Farooqi, has, according to the Stanford University and the think tank group in America, they have pointed out that this ISKP has launched hundreds of attacks against Pakistan. And they have also are fighting against the Taliban government in Afghanistan. So you can see this group that has a war going on with Pakistan, a war going on with Afghanistan, and this is according to Western American intelligence research. At the same time, they have not a single time attacked a single target of India. So they have nothing to do with attacking India. They've been attacking American forces, they've been killing Pakistan forces, and they've been fighting the Taliban. And suddenly they found this love that for the Kashmiris, that they want to attack the Sikhs and kill the Sikhs because the Indian government has just put out new measures against Kashmir, the Hindutva government. So this becomes very complex, and it opens up the need for Sikhs to look into these matters very gravely. And furthermore, ISKP, which claimed responsibility for the attack on the Sikhs in Kabul, where 25 were killed, and basically it was an uprootment. It was an uprootment, and now we know that ISKP is no friend of Pakistan, is no friend of the United States, is no friend of the Afghan government, and it has definitely has a soft spot for India. It has failed to attack India. And now we know that Sarah Adams has pointed out that one of the groups that are close to the ISKP who attacked the Gurdwara is the Haqqani group. And Haqqani groups are very close with ISKP, and they are now also getting money security. Their personal security is handled by India. And within these groups, there's so much complexities. So we cannot dwell into that, but we'll give you a general sense of the directions where certain elements who are doing the biddings of India, whenever India wants it, where the interests meet, example, attacking the Sikhs, where you see that the personal security, money, and all this stuff is exchanging between India and ISKP and the Haqqani groups. And the ISKP doesn't just stop here, where Aslam Faruqi, the head who claimed responsibility, is involved. In fact, earlier, I believe a couple of years earlier, the ISKP also took responsibility of killing about 269 Christians in Sri Lanka, And again, the person, Zahran, who was the prime suspect, he has ties to ISKP. In fact, he claims membership to the ISKP, and he also has ties to the Indian intelligence, and he has been trained in southern India. And the ISKP Kerala group has been on Indian intelligence radar for a long time. So India, in fact, knew exactly what ISKP was going to do in Sri Lanka. And then the same group claims responsibility for the Kabul attacks on the Sikhs and doesn't do anything against India. So that makes it very intriguing, and especially for Sikhs, they need to widen their knowledge. They need to widen their knowledge. They need to know that this game plan is a very fluid situation where every Sikh globally can be a target by using these proxy methods.
What I find interesting, Bhajan, is there is a huge influx into ISIS and these extremist Islamic groups from Kerala in India. And even so much so that I gather ISIS even had a special division to accommodate all these young fighters coming from Kerala. And so clearly there is a very deep link between certain parts of India and ISIS. But also, it is an extremely complex situation with all these splinter groups and these groups. But it does appear, if we just take a step back and look at the bigger picture, that basically, certainly parts of ISIS are being used as proxy weapons of the Indian Hindutva extremists. They are basically using ISIS and the ISKP as essentially their weapons. But in the meantime, both the Pakistan and Afghanistan governments are not a party to this. So India are playing their games using these small groups to divide the Sikhs and the Muslims, particularly.
Yes, again, repeatedly, then 2013 when I shared these concerns, and then after the Kabul bombing, we did put out the kite fight. The proxy wars behind the Kabul Gurdwara massacre, and in the book, you could find not only the collaboration now, but also India has a consistent pattern of derailing peace plans, of consistently using Sikhs as a soft targets. Using Muslims to attack Sikhs. So if you go back to year 2000, the Chitti Singhpura massacre, when Clinton was about to land in India, they massacred 36 Sikhs. And at that time too, although the Indian army was later found out to be involved, certain elements of the Indian army, but initially the immediate plan was to blame Pakistan. I'm no defender of Pakistan. The facts are facts. And right now, the whole thing is backed by Western intelligence, the CIA intelligence, that India has consistently worked in proxy wars against minorities and Sikhs, as I warned in 2013. So in the Chitti Singhpura case, they killed 36 young Sikh men and then blaming blamed on the Muslim terrorists in Kashmir at that time. And later we found out it is all the work of the Indian intelligence. At that time, too, there was very serious efforts by the Clinton administration in the midst of this nuclear tension between India and Pakistan. But then India comes and uses these proxy methods, like the Chitti Singh case. And then if you, in 2007, on the day the foreign minister of India, of Pakistan, was supposed to come to India to sign a peace accord with the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, lo and behold, he had to cancel the trip immediately because, as we wrote we explained this whole thing in The Faces of Terror, another report I think a lot of us should read. In The Faces of Terror, we did document on this particular day when the peace accord was supposed to be signed between Manmohan Singh and India and Pakistan, the Samjhauta Express was bombed and the Muslim terrorists were blamed again. Now the Samjhauta Express was initially initiated as a peace train between India and Pakistan. Now we found out that Lieutenant Colonel Purohit, who was well known in the Kashmir area for murders, rampage against the Kashmiris, now his fingerprints, he has basically been caught red-handed, and he was, given a soft treatment, just put in jail as a celebrity. Now he's tied into this Samjhauta Express bombings to derail the peace plan. So again, if you go to the Kabul Gurdwara attacks in the midst of the corridor Gurdwara, in the midst of the Kashmiris girls who were held by Sikhs when the Kashmiri girls came under attack. And there was a lot of report and good feeling among the Muslims who were victims of India's oppression and the Sikhs. And the Prime Minister Imran Khan opened the corridor. And again, there is a peace process going on between Pakistan, United States, the Taliban, and which India is part of, but it chooses to remain on the sideline because its interest doesn't serve its interest to bring peace to the region, because Lala Hardayal wants to not only conquer Afghanistan, but he wants to convert all the mountain tribes. He wants to do a shuddhi, to a forceful karvapsi, bring them home and convert them back to Hindus. So under this whole scenario, you can see each time the Sikhs are used as soft targets, they are used as baits, and each time the goal is to derail the peace process, and each time is to further put the blame on Pakistan and let the West know that there's terrorists, Muslim terrorists behind, but always using the Sikhs targets. And what is ironic, each time they use the Sikh targets to kill Sikhs in Kabul, Afghanistan, now we know that it is the work of the Indian state. They have close ties to these proxy groups. And then they come out and they come out and pretend to be friends of the Sikhs. Or we're going to bring the Guru Granth Sahib home. Where else will the Sikh go? Where else would they go but to come to India? So they create the uprootment themselves, Aapi Qatil and Aapi Khapan. They're murderers, and they try to apply the ointment at the same time. So this ISIS-India collaboration, I would say, is an entirely India design, the whole thing. Because going back to all the different peace process, their fingerprints is their mind working. And, you have to understand this proxy war, because we've been suffering from these proxy designs for a long time, including the Air India, bringing down of the Air India plane, bombing the plane. I would want the whole thing to be looked at again. I'm pleading the victims of the Air India crash. If you lost a loved one, look at the history of the Sikhs, how they've been baited, soft-targeted, agent provocators are used, money is spent. God knows what goes on behind the scene. And if we want true, not to divest too much from the topic,
I think the Air India victims, they deserve a true justice which has not been brought. And these new findings about the way the Indian government works, especially the Indian intelligence and their Hindutva apparatus, we need to look at it again. All their work they have done thus far against the Sikhs.
Yes, it's interesting that you mentioned the Air India incident, because of course all these false flag incidents that you've just referred to, whether it's a Samjhauta Express, the Chitin Singh Pura killings, they are very clearly false flag incidents, terrorist acts perpetrated by Indian intelligence, by these Hindutva people. And of course, my mind immediately sprung to the Air India attack, because clearly there is a modus operandi, there is a very clear tactic used by Hindutva to use false flag events to create not just division, but ensure that the Sikh community is blamed for attacks such as this. So I think there was an interesting detail that came out in your book, and this was that the anti-terrorist squad leader, Hemant Karkare in Mumbai, he actually, I understand, he was the one who uncovered Lieutenant Colonel Purohit's activities. And of course, Purohit was the founder of this group, Akkhand Bharat, which essentially is this extremist right-wing group. But of course, Karkare himself, who uncovered all this, he arrested, I gather, Purohit. But then unfortunately, Karkare himself was killed in another terrorist incident in Mumbai. Is that right?
Yes, that is absolutely right. And we have covered that fact in many places. In fact, his widow came out and a book is written on it. And they clearly blame the Indian state. Again, the Mumbai attacks. I mean, this is so deep, and so much resources needed to really get into the bottom line there. But at least with Sarah Adams disclosing these relations and the kite fight, further begging for bigger investigations into this India's modus operandi. And I think in India itself, anybody who loves peace, anybody who wants a good future for India, they need to learn from the Mumbai attack how the person Karkare, who actually was close to investigating and getting to the bottom of what went on the Mumbai attacks. But unfortunately, in this bizarre operation, he himself was the target of killings. And there is no end to such operations that the Indian state conducts. And you absolutely are correct. This opens up a Pandora box, and this opens up a new learning deep into the inside, the Sikh experiences, the Mumbai police chief experience. So these are all we can learn from this, and further work need to be done to dig out the truth about the events both in Mumbai and the Purohit connections, and the whole. Actually, the whole thing traces back to the RSS, which is the head of all these operations. So I do believe that with the current situation, geopolitical situation in the world, where the Niger assassination attempts to murder Mr. Gurpatwan Singh Pannu, and many other unknown attempts. I even myself had a article written against me in 2000, I believe, 17, and there were 3 threats written. They still exist, and one of them said that Mossad-style operation need to be done on Peter and Bhinder, and that's the only solution to stop them from publishing works and questioning the integrity of India.
Yeah, and this group, RSS, this extremist organisation, their name crops up all the time. Whenever there is an issue to do with terrorism, division of society, extremism, it's always RSS. And interestingly, you do describe the RSS as the world's largest terrorist organisation, don't you?
Yes, it is the world's largest terrorist organizations. If you go back to Open Secrets, it's a book written by M.K. Dar, former RAW agent. He is a former IB head who came, he was sent by Indira Gandhi as a diplomat to Canada. And I quote him in his book that he was told that he's needed to do dirty works in Canada. This is before 1984. And we have made mention of this in our Faces of Terror, that was the planting the bomb on Air India, one of these dirty works, where he was told to go to Canada and be expected to do dirty works. And he said the Indian intelligence, the IB and the RAW, they are all influenced and indoctrinated by RSS. So there's no part of RSS in India that is not present in a devious way in every aspect of Indian society. And M.K. Dar himself wrote in Open Secrets that every department in India, all the intelligence apparatus, they are all influenced and trained by RSS to his cadre camps. Narasimha Rao, you name it. It doesn't matter which party they belong to. And all these cadres, which we call the largest militant terrorist organization in the world, they are indoctrinated to the teachings of Lala Hardyal, Advani, where the bigger Indian state is wanted. And they are also indoctrinated with the idea of they are a higher society. And they got their inspirations way back from the Hitler, Nazi experimentations in Germany. So they said that this multiculturalism is a bad thing, and we need to profit from the experimentations of the Nazis and Hitler's doctrines. In fact, 2012 manifesto, Breivik, the white nationalist who killed so many children in Norway, in his manifesto, he quotes the RSS, and he sees the RSS as a mentor that is against multiculturalism, and he said the world should support the RSS, and even he tells the Sikhs that you should accept yourself as Hindus. So this RSS business is gone from simply a small Lathi camps. They are really into the big game now, where they are influencing global fascist nationalist organizations. And the Sikhs are always placed in there as baits, soft targets to be attacked at their will.
I find there's a very deep paradox about the RSS, which really strikes me. And when we look back at history, I mean, they are driven, I believe, by this almost Aryan superior race philosophy that they want to create this nation of elite, of Hindu elite, genetically superior people, essentially following Nazi philosophy. But for the final part of this discussion, I'd just like to just even get your thoughts on when we look back in history, and this ties again into Afghanistan. It was interesting to note in your book, or one of your books, that Afghanistan, we're going back many centuries now, was actually ruled by Brahmins. And of course, Brahmins, the upper caste, the Hindu upper caste, which is part of the ruling elite in India. And they are advocating, this Hindutva organisation, these extremists, are pushing for what they called Akhand Bharat. And this is where I find the paradox really coming into this equation, because Akkhand Bharat it basically follows almost the old British Empire territory. It includes Pakistan, it includes Afghanistan, down as far as Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. It's a huge region, which of course is made up of the most diverse cultures and religions. So their ambition to create Akkhand Bharat is almost, in my view, impossible, because at the moment, even just with India as it stands as itself, this hugely diverse nation, they are struggling to contain so many different diverse cultures, whether it's Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, Jains, whatever. It's struggling within its own current borders. Now they're trying to expand this whole idea over the long term to include Myanmar, Afghanistan, and all these other regions, Sri Lanka. To me, it is an impossible aspiration. It is something that can never happen. And in fact, I actually believe will go the opposite way. I can see the whole thing, like the Soviet Union, for example, just falling apart because it is too culturally diverse. It is a political and societal impossibility to keep so much together under one territory and under one flag. I'm interested in your thoughts, Bhajan.
Well, I think the best way to understand this is there was a Brahmin lawyer in the 1920s, Swami Dharmatirtha, who quit his law business, shut his office, and left the Brahmin society, the upper caste society, in fact, to basically pursue living with the common untouchable folks. He wrote a book, The World of Hindu Imperialism, a very important read. In there, he says that this virus of Brahmanism must be contained. And Brahmanism doesn't mean only Brahmin. Anybody who wants to aspire to follow the ideology of Aryan superiority and stuff like that. He said this virus should be contained. And people with such viruses, they should not be given a visa to leave India. That's in the 1920s. And the Hindutva, Aryan, Hindutva, RSS, they have a very big wish list. They want to conquer the world, the universe, the space. That's their wish list. They believe that Indonesia falls under them. They believe Thailand falls under them. And they have even expanded their desires to America. At one point, they almost got away with it, that Gandhi's birthday was going to be observed as a national holiday. A bill was introduced in the U.S. Congress. And I have done a lot of activism on Gandhi. In fact, Gandhism.net is one of the websites we created. And we were lucky that some of the ideas of the Hindutva, they were rejected. For example, the University of Ghana, they engaged with our groups, the Sikh Information Center. We convinced them, we sent them information, and lo and behold, they worked hard. They put a lot of pressure on the Ghanaian government, and the statue of Gandhi came down in Ghana, and it is termed as a racist statue. So we can talk a lot more someday about that. But so they have their wish list, and then they have a counter list. And where Sikhs come in, I think they can play a very important role, because the ideas of Sikhi, Guru Nanak, and the ideas of the Brahmins, autocrats, nobility, lineage. So the Gurus have rejected this in the Gurbani. These are two paths. They will never merge. They'll never converge. They will never meet. And the Sikhi world is not only a Sikh way of life and, the Sikh ideas of egalitarian society are more needed now today. And you don't need to be a Sikh to have those ideas. We just need to appreciate the teachings of the Guru. The sovereignty of an individual is paramount for the survival of humanity in this world. Yes, they have a very big wish list, and we'll talk about how they counter those people who try to fight them, who try to counter this wish list, who try to educate the world how India rejects. We'll talk in a minute. Whenever you raise questions about India's terrorism, Hindutva's terrorism, whether you wrote it in our research on the faces of terror in India, the UNO report, the demons within, and the kite fight, the proxy wars, which has been proven now to be correct with Sarah Adams and other research coming out. So what the Indian government does, they find a very unique way to attack any individual who tries to shed some light on this problem. In my case, they came up with a 100-page report. It's called The Unending War, from Proxy War to Info War against India. And this is the work of the Raw Agency, because the Washington Post just released its findings. This report came out in 2021, early 21. So in early 24, the Washington Post did an investigative report, and they said the Unending War was the work of a disinfo lab, which is part and apparatus of the Raw Agency. And they tried to drag my association with Arundhati Roy so they can use my relation with her against her in a court case. So it's an unending war, they said, that people like me, they said for more than 20 years, I've moved from being a very proud, which I'm very proud of my support for the Sikh militancy at one time, but we moved on to a different war now, and which is the info war, and they took out this close to 100-page report to assassinate my character, to put fear in every person who is associated with me, to create fear in Arundhati Roy, that if you work with other people who are interested to create information about the real nature of India and how the whole system works, to undermine not only the Sikhs, but to undermine the whole world, in fact, then they put out these nasty pieces, and everything you can imagine is put in there from the day you were born till today. And they use this as a template to scare anyone else who dare to challenge India. But the war goes on. As the Sikhs say, jang jari hai. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Interesting. And of course, poor Arundhati Roy, now the subject of India's dreadfully anti-democratic, anti-terrorism laws, story that we've been following. But Bhajan, it has been a fascinating topic, but there we must leave it. But we will be talking with Bhajan Singh Bhinder again soon to continue our discussions. Bhajan, it has been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
And thank you for watching the Satellite TV podcast. We will see you next time.